did New Zealand's wealthiest school become the centre of one of the country's biggest sexual abuse cases? At the boys-only boarding school Dilworth, hundreds of students suffered serious abuse over 3 decades. What's more, they say the school went out of its way to cover it up.
Dilworth, a school that had a sparkling reputation and a noble goal: to take in disadvantaged children and give them education, faith and opportunity. The school that promised these boys so much instead took everything from them. Nestled in the heart of Auckland's Remuera is a century-old boarding school. Its founders were James and Isabella Dilworth, a childless couple who left behind their property fortune and a lofty vision. Documents show that in 1978, Dilworth knew at least 5 other students were being abused by Peter Taylor. That number later grew to 10. The school claims it carried out an internal investigation into the offending, but says the report was inexplicably destroyed years later. The police were never called. Instead, minutes from a Dilworth board meeting show Peter Taylor was allowed to quietly resign. Peter Taylor died in 2012, aged 74. If he was alive, police say he'd likely join the list of 12 men already charged with sexual assault at Dilworth. Police launched Operation Beverley in 2019. They've already identified 139 victims at Dilworth, and investigators believe another 96 children were likely abused.
Welcome, Rod, to the We Were Children YouTube channel.
Thanks, Greg.
Why have you decided to share your story today on the Survivors channel?
I think a couple of reasons, really. I think Dilworth School, and that's not to take away James and Isabella, the founders of the school, which were perfectly great and beautiful people to start up a school like this, but to further down, to hand it into the hands of people that get run into disrepute. And I think that my main thing was that they weren't coming through with the truth, and it just showed that it was never intended to be a truthful matter the whole way. So I thought, well, they can have some truth of their own back at them, and then I'll give them facts of when I went to school.
Yeah, okay. How did you end up going to Dilworth?
Well, Dilworth has a sort of like a program. Well, when we were kids, we basically, to get into the school year, they had to have a dead parent, or both your dead parents were dead or separated, and in a financial state, I think it was. It wasn't really easy to get into the school. My father had died when I was 7, so I basically had a walk-up start, I suppose.
Okay. You went to Dilworth from 1972 to 78. According to your school file, here is a mugshot of you off your file taken in 76 and 78. You're a good-looking blonde-haired lad back in the day.
Not really that much blonde anymore.
Yeah. Rod, how did you find the environment of Dilworth School?
The environment was a type of environment where you, if you told on people or if you told on other students, you were considered as a pimp. And it was like a code of silence throughout the school that if you broke that code of silence, then you would be ridiculed by the whole school. And I mean the whole school. Even your mates would shun you. and I
Yeah.
mean big time.
Mm.
You're virtually bullied by everyone, and you knew you just wouldn't do it. It
Yeah,
wasn't
okay.
worth doing it.
Yep. You and I were in the school scouts. Remember that time that Scoutmaster Ian Wilson didn't bother checking the weather forecast and it rained the whole weekend and we were stuck in our tents for the whole weekend?
I do. I remember that quite vividly because I had a mate, and I was lucky that we had a small pup tent, and we used to actually go camping a bit together, and we made a moat around the outside of the tent and made ours pretty well waterproof because we'd been through a couple things before that, and we were lucky. We only had one of the only driest tents on the whole lot. I think there was only one dry tent, and that was us. But yeah, it was a bit of a weekend where students were basically trapped in the tents with that scouts were trapped in the tents with the scoutmasters. So yeah,
Oh, they were
it was.
sharing, boys were sharing tents with Scoutmasters.
Well, they'd be in the tents at times, yeah, for sure. And I don't think it was an all great, um,
Mm.
great situation for any of them.
And was this where Wilson introduced you to Galloway, was it? Or while you're in scouts and that sort of thing? Or how did Galloway
He
come
did.
on the scene?
Galloway was a friend of Wilson's, and Wilson brought him in as a scoutmaster, um, and that's how I sort of basically met Galloway, and other boys did too. But Wilson took me down to Galloway's unit, which he lived only just across the boundary of Dilworth. So yeah, there was things going on in the unit that wasn't a great thing. We basically, when Wilson took me down there was free access to alcohol, and there was also other things like drugs that you could partake in, and suggested to have a go at. And being 14, 15, you're very susceptible to, like want to stay in with the in crowd and everyone else, and you're just gullible to a lot of things, I
And so,
suppose.
what was this drug that you were given?
It was amyl nitrate, which is a type of upper, and it sort of gives you an hallucination for about 5 to 10 minutes.
Okay, did you inhale or digest it?
We inhaled it through the nose, and it just give you almost instant euphoria heat. Yeah. And
According to
once
the
you're in that state, it was sort of like, anything can happen, I suppose. But I suppose they knew that, and that was their intentions back in those days.
according to the health and safety warning, this amyl nitrate is nasty stuff.
Amyl nitrate, health and safety. Amyl nitrate liquid should not be ingested, i.e., do not swallow, as it is a highly poisonous substance that can lead to blindness, brain damage, organ failure, and death. It is also a powerful irritant that can lead to burns to the face, skin, and eyes.
Why do you think they were wanting to give you drugs and alcohol?
I think they were virtually setting us up to molest us or do other things as well. And the situation was that it was a bit like known as a bit of a party thing down there. So, yeah, the more other boys heard about alcohol and stuff going on, that more they wanted as well. And but
And
I'm
so,
surprised it's never been mentioned outside of that I've heard. So I thought I'd bring it out.
yeah. So Galloway molested you, and this, he obviously gave you drugs, alcohol, and molested you at this time.
Well, other boys, he didn't actually molest me out his unit, but he did take me away on a trip. He was an air traffic controller, and he had access to planes and things, and he took me and another boy to a Great Barrier Island, and supposedly for a weekend camping. But once there, we were pretty well trapped. Nothing we could do, and we were subjected to being molested, and wasn't a great experience. That's about all I'll go into that.
Yeah, yeah, okay. And coming back to, I understand that Galloway also introduced you to Sunday. You had a Sunday sessions that used to happen at his unit. Is that right?
That's right. Galloway also used to have a pedophile ring of friends that used to come to his unit, and as I discovered once when I knocked on the doors with another friend of mine, and they were all watching slides of Taiwanese boys and other sick pictures, and I just
These were boy nude pictures, were
that's right, pictures of nude Taiwanese boys down to the age of six, and yeah, it wasn't great stuff. And I remember after that getting out of the whole scene because it just was doing my head in.
they? How many adults were at this? Were there any other staff from Dilworth at these Sunday sessions besides Galloway?
I think Ian Wilson and his brother were probably there, but I think mostly it was friends of Galloway and his mates throughout Remuera, and we all they. I remember one other time I went to another place in Remuera that was held by one of those people in the pedophile ring, and that they were showing slides and stuff there too. And I didn't really look at the screen too much. That time was the time before this, and I did notice that there was a couple other boys there that were about my age, and were just talking and doing different things at the time.
So these other friends of Galloway's turned up with their own boys, did they?
There was another guy, that young bloke, that did come with one of the other friends, yes. But
And were there other boys from Dilworth School?
no, not all of them, actually. It was just me and a friend that was, and another one that his mum dropped him off.
Oh,
I think
okay.
his name was, I can't remember his name actually now.
Coming back to this trip, um, to Great Barrier Island, when you got back, did you tell anybody about this trip?
I actually told the headmaster at the time, Mr. Parr, and he, which was hard to get in to see Parr at that time, which I waited for about an hour just to get in to see him through his secretary, and he said he'd take care of this the situation after I told him, and he said for some reason that he was, um, what was his name? The word he used, I forget the word he used. He said, I had my suspicions, and at that time I was young, and I was just not sure exactly what he meant by that.
Oh, okay. And this was roughly 1977, was it, when you made this complaint?
That's right.
Yeah, okay. And at any time did Headmaster Pa say to you that your complaint was not believed?
No, he did actually said he'd
Had a
take care of it,
suspicion.
and I
Yeah.
believed he knew exactly what I was talking about and what I made the complaint about, which was Galloway and Wilson at the time.
So this means basically the school, Dilworth School, had a complaint about Wilson in 1977, which is 20 years earlier than the complaint that removed Wilson from the school in 1997. So that means that Wilson went on after this sexual abuse, that he was involved in this stuff for 20 years at the school abusing boys.
Yes, and I don't think I was the only person either, to be honest. I think there was another person that was um, groomed by Wilson as well. And that was pushed under the rug too. I think his mother actually complained about it.
Yeah, there's
But
that much stuff under the rug. You'd wonder why people aren't tripping over it. The bulge must be that big. Tell me, you mentioned about you mentioned about Ian Wilson's brother, Ken Wilson. How did he come into play?
His brother was also, I think he was in the choir, or he had something to do with the clergy as well. And I just remember him. He was a very pretty suspect bloke himself, and I'm surprised no one's mentioned him as well.
Yeah, okay. And he had a nickname, did he?
Yeah, we all used to call him Friar Tuck because he was basically like a monk, and he was big and podgy at
Okay.
the time.
And what did Ken Wilson do at Dilworth School exactly?
I'm pretty sure it was just mostly had to do with the inside the chapel with
The
being a
choir or something?
in the choir, but also I think he used to give out the communion and be part of the clergy in there.
But you suspect, do you know whether Ken Wilson was abusing children at the Dilworth School?
I have my suspicions he was, but I can't say exactly because I didn't actually see it.
Yeah,
But
okay. Yeah, that's right. But he just happened to be around in the group and bumping into him at different locations. Yeah. Okay.
Where his brother was.
Yeah, Rod, look, thanks very much for sharing your story today on this Survivors blog. It's greatly appreciated.
It's all right.
Thanks.
I just hope the truth comes out and that people actually believe the truth, because
Yeah.
sometimes, and I've seen it over these years, I've not wanted to come out with all this type of stuff because back then you were just ridiculed
Yeah.
a bit because of it, and I've been living as a recluse ever since, or more or less.
Yeah, I think it's great that you're telling your story, because I think then by bringing this stuff out and making people aware, we ensure this stuff never happens again. And I thank you for that.
And that's my full intentions, Greg. I absolutely believe that the future
Yeah.
boys at school shouldn't be subjected to stuff or horrific stuff like this.
Yeah, I agree. Well, thanks again, and I'm sure we'll be in touch again on future vlogs.
Thanks.
All right, thanks for it.
Bye.